All right, guys. So I'm going to do a screen share as well so that we can all see the content today. Pastor Brandon, once again, will be our guest. So if you wanted to pin him on the on your screen there with Zoom, that would be a good idea to where you can see him as well. So Church Brand Guide is your place where I want to serve you as a virtual communications director. And our goal is to help you be your church's brand expert. So this is a marketing and business type of a conversation. We're not talking about spiritual things. We're just talking about how do we get your messaging out there in a way where people engage with it. And we're going to share some of those ideas with you as we do these calls. We want to help you turn strangers into people who contribute to your vision. I want to see you get more guests showing up, more life change taking place, and more people contributing in your church with their resources, of their time and their finances. Our goal here is to take you through 4 steps. One is to get clear. So this is what it means to have a brand. You have to basically get clear about who you are, who you serve. From that, you create the right experience. And then you attract people to it. And finally, you ask people to buy into the thing that you are presenting. So it's really simple. It sounds really simple. It's a little bit more complicated to execute, especially when there's a coronavirus going on. So like I said, today, we're going to be talking about how to build the right brand in this environment with coronavirus. And Pastor Brandon and I have been working for a while together. And, about a year ago, we started he came down, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. And then I came down maybe a year ago, basically to start Vibrant Church. He's the pastor. I just kind of help out where I can. And we're going to share some insights. And just to set up the conversation, Brandon and I, neither one of us are like, pastors or been part of a, 5,000, 10,000 member church. But what we do is we learn from those types of churches. So Brandon, why don't you tell me a little bit about your world and what you've been doing lately with Vibrant Church?
It's a great question. So our model is know God, find freedom, discover purpose, make a difference. Know God is about a weekend experience that helps people take the next step in their relationship with Jesus. Find freedom is all about a small group, we call them connect groups, and helping people grow in the arena of discipleship, looking more like Jesus and less like the world. Discover purpose, for us, as we call it, a growth track, which is an assimilation process into the church that's revolves around a personality profile and a spiritual gifts test, helping them find the right place to invest their God-given gifts and personality. And then the last piece of it is we call them dream teams, which is make a difference. So that's all we do. We do Sunday morning services. We do small groups, we do a growth track, and we do and we do dream teams. So that all changed systematically once the coronavirus took place and we weren't meeting in physical gatherings. So we had to reinvent the methodology of the same mission. So our vision hasn't changed, our mission hasn't changed, our brand hasn't changed, just the method at which we're applying each one of those steps had to change. So we are pre-recording services in the middle of the week and then streaming them live to Facebook and YouTube. And we're pushing people towards YouTube because we anticipate phase 2 of the economy going back in place being gatherings of less than 25. So with YouTube, you can very easily put your pre-recorded services on a television and then watch those throughout the week. Now, what we've experienced on Sundays is about 1/3 of our total audience on a Sunday morning is actually watching us live. 2/3 of our audience is actually watching us on demand, meaning after it's live streamed to Facebook or YouTube, then they're watching the video. As far as connect groups, all of our connect groups right now are digital. And some groups went great and they grew, and some groups really struggled and they kind of flatlined. And what we are trying to do is encourage and coach our connect group leaders to change the format at which they might be doing connect groups. Growth track has been probably the biggest struggle, but we've gained some traction in the last couple of weeks. where we actually are ordering pizza for anyone who signs up for our growth track, and we're having a pizza delivered to their home the same way we did when we did in-person growth track, as we provided lunch for them. And it just created a little bit of an incentive for someone to join our growth track, which points them to a dream team. And our dream teams have gone one of two methods. One is a digital dream team, meaning they're doing something online, or a missions one, where we can go to a food bank, or we can go and serve the elderly in different capacities. And we're letting our dream team come up with their dream for how to serve the city. And then we just try to get behind them and communicate what they're doing so other people can join. So that's what we're doing right now.
You know, the church as a whole, like every church, there's some basic things that we do really well as just an overall brand, if you will. First of all, we're really good at sharing hope, or giving people hope. The second thing that we're really good at is creating a place to belong, a community to belong. The third thing is that we're really good at helping people discover their purpose. And the fourth thing we're really good at is helping people to be significant, or to make a difference. So this is kind of what I've seen in church world. Like, many churches are focusing on the wrong things. They're basically focusing on themselves. Like, how can we do ministries? How can we do small groups? How can we do whatever we do? But what the solution is something along the lines of helping people. Like, if we know that basically people need hope and we can provide hope, then we should figure out a way to do that. Same thing with community, helping people to belong somewhere, helping people to discover their purpose, because it might look different from, like Brandon just unpacked there. Our teams that are serving in our church, they aren't serving like they normally serve. They're serving in a different capacity right now, and it looks a little different, but the need is still there for people to have significance, to make a difference through our church. So I feel like if we get this right, you'll communicate the benefits that we have. So I'm using marketing language because I think it's just different for us to think about it in that light as church leaders. So if I'm selling a vacuum on TV, I'm not really selling the vacuum. I'm selling a clean room. And the fact that you can have your friends over because your room is clean, like, that's what I'm selling. Oh, by the way, you can buy the vacuum. So as a church, it's not about, hey, we have small groups, or hey, we have, a ministry, or whatever it is. It's, hey, we want to give you hope. We want to provide a place for you to belong. Those are the things we need to focus on. It's more focusing on them and what their needs are than it is focusing on ourselves. Brandon, can you speak into that? Like, how have you seen that play out?
Yeah, so I think as a pastor, one of the tension points that everyone feels all the time is giving. And so many people were used to giving in the Sunday morning experience. Well, now they're not having their typical Sunday morning experience. And what I have seen across the churches that are doing a great job in this solution of helping other people, they're actually talking about their giving is increasing. And what we have seen as a church is, I don't know where April finished out, but I think it was pretty close to a typical week. However, March was actually up for us in giving. And what we're pointing people to is, hey, your giving is making a difference. So 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about how we're going to continue to worship God in our giving, and hey, this weekend, because of your giving, we were actually able to buy 2,000 meals for kids that are in need in our city. And this last week, it was, hey, because of your generosity, we were actually able to provide Financial Peace University, which is very much a felt need right now, for a massively discounted price because of the giving. And so because we're being intentional at serving at food banks and giving to places that are in need, and providing an opportunity for people right now that are financially struggling to get financially strong, people are giving to that. And as a result, people who have never attended a physical service are actually coming and watching us online, but they're also taking next steps and getting on our dream team, or they might be giving or getting in one of our connect groups, because we are making it very visible. Hey, we see the needs of our city, and we're looking to provide a solution to some of those needs.
Excellent. This past week, we met some new people that joined our church just online. and they started to uh, help out in different areas. We record on Thursday. They showed up on Thursday to help us record, and we just hadn't ever like really seen them in church before this period. So as we meet the needs of people, I think that's the idea. Like we get to serve them and provide something that they need instead of focusing on us and how can we just do this as normal. So this idea of focusing on the audience is a big one. Um, so Brandon, I was going to ask you a question of how are people consuming church right now? Again, I just want to set it up as like, hey, we've just been in a lot of small groups, roundtables, and been around a lot of pastors that have been kicking this stuff around. And our hope is to really just provide some insights of a lot of things we're learning, and also give you direct feedback as we've been applying some of this stuff. So Brandon, what does the world look like right now as far as like how people are consuming church?
It's right here. They're consuming it with their smartphone in their hand and in their pocket. It's where they're watching YouTube videos. It's where they're listening to podcasts. It's Facebook. It's Instagram. It's TikTok. People are consuming content through their phone. What they're looking for is connection. So it's using those different platforms to build connection and relationship with people. That I think is really going to make the biggest difference when we get to go back to having in-person live Sunday gatherings.
Yeah, so that I guess that's a big question. Like, what does church look like when we go back? Any thoughts of what Vibrant's going to look like?
Yeah, right now it's all theory. I've heard a lot of theories. I've heard people say it's going to look like revival from day one, and like 9/11 churches are just going to be full. And I've heard other people say, hey, I think churches are going to be skeptical, or people are going to be skeptical about meeting in larger gatherings because they've been conditioned over the last 60 days, because it takes 42 days, I think they say, to build a habit. It's been more than 42 days. They have built a habit of social distancing and avoiding large crowds because of fear. Which is going to be the reality? I don't know. I think that there's going to be some indicators of what I'm watching right now is when playgrounds open back up, are playgrounds full, or is there hardly anyone there? And I think that will be a tell as to whether families with kids, young kids, are going to come back to church. Are they going to allow their kids to gather around other kids, or are they going to slow down? For me, I'm not going to choose to go back to larger Sunday gatherings until we can do kids ministry at the level that we were doing it before. Even if that means it's going to be smaller, I want to be able to do kids ministry because it's so much a part of our culture of bringing the gospel to kids on their level. I do recognize very much so that our standard of cleanliness is going to have to be higher, and we're going to have to communicate and show parents that it is higher. So I'm in communication right now with some people who work in preschools who are preparing right now to go back to having preschool and childcare, and the standards at which they're bringing to their businesses is the standards that I want to bring in to Vibrant, to build trust within those families, that when they bring their kid to Vibrant, not only is the gospel at their level, but it's also safe and it's clean for them to go back. I also think that the church as it existed is history, and there's going to have to be a new version. And I think if people come back to our facilities and it looks and feels exactly the way that it did several months ago, the last time that they came to our church, it's going to feel like they walk back in history. But everyone knows that, like 9/11, like the world's not going back the way it was before. It's forever going to look and feel different.
Yeah, that's good. And I think the idea too of just, focusing on the people and the kind of where they are, what their needs are, if they're responding to, needing their temperature checked, then we should probably do something like that, maybe pay attention to the movie theaters and some other large gatherings and see what they're doing to make that happen. So I saw a couple comments on our chat, and I just wanted to pose a question, if you want to put in the chat, about, are you tired right now, or are you well rested? I'm just curious, like, so, is it a lighter load for you right now, or are you more tired? Like Brandon was saying, are you more tired now than even before all this? Just I see a tired pop up really quick on that one. Okay, I just checking. Just want to didn't know if you were sitting back and relaxing a little bit. Also, let's jump into this. So you talked about this a little while ago. This idea that church is basically these four things. You know, it's about God, it's about community, it's about helping people step into purpose, it's about helping them find significance. And really, if you boil down like what a church is and oversimplified it, again, that's what branding is. Branding is just like oversimplifying the story to where somebody can understand it. We know that there's a lot more details to what a church is, but if you simplified it, it's really these things. So Brandon, how are we communicating this? And again, you touched on some of this, but how are we communicating this or expressing these things in a new way, maybe than what we've done before?
Great. So one of the things we've been tracking, especially in YouTube and Facebook, has been, hey, when are people starting to tune in and when are people tuning out? And so what we have done to shift our online engagement, because it's a lot easier to worship when you're in a room full of people worshiping. It's really hard to worship when your kids are running all over the place and they're distracted. So we've even altered our services to make it so we only do one song before the message, then it goes into the message, and then we do two songs on the back end. Now, what we saw really clearly was as soon as the closing announcements started, people started dropping out like crazy. So we're like, they're not hearing the next steps. So for me, I started preaching people's next steps. So, hey, if you're a guest with us today, and they'll throw up the same slide we used in the closing announcement, I just want you to text this number. We've got some next steps we'd love to help you take, and we'd love to make a donation to a local food bank on your behalf. Hey, we have this thing called Growth Track. It's where we help you discover your purpose. And this last week, I even just shared about how the Apostle Paul had talked to Timothy, saying, hey, I'm going to blow on some embers of what God is doing, fan into flame the spiritual gifts that God gave you. And that's what we do in Growth Track. We just blow on those embers. And hey, connect groups, this is where community happens. This is where life happens. This is where discipleship happens. And hey, you need to have the right people in your life. So I'm bringing the announcements into my message. And what we've seen is the engagement has gone up significantly because it's coming from me, forcing us to redo a little bit of the flow of our services that I think has increased our engagement. And the second thing is, because people are engaging here on their phones, what we're doing with that is we're making it so, hey, we're engaging here, pointing them to their next steps. Hey, here's a great way to sign up for a Connect group. Hey, here's a way to sign up for Financial Peace University. Hey, Growth Track, we're offering free pizzas. Click this link and sign up for Vibrant as we've been doing it.
Yeah, so I think having this clarity, like we know these four things are the things that move the needle for the church. So like the pizza idea, like you just, I don't know where you got it. I know you heard from somewhere about this idea, but what I appreciate is that, man, you know, like that's it. Like that's a good idea for us. Not every idea is a good idea, but that one is, because it's one of our things. Like it's one of the four things that we need to focus on. So I feel like if you oversimplify what the church is and what the important things about the church is, then you can make decisions that are consistently in line with the things that you do best. And you could put your resources. I mean, a pizza probably costs, $12 a piece to send out a pizza. Let's just say it is. Is it worth it? Well, I think, Brandon, how would you answer that question? Is it worth it?
Yeah, so my church math is this. If someone finishes our Growth Track, the likelihood of in the next year them becoming a giver is very high. So 2 pizzas delivered to their house, let's just say it's $30. The likelihood of someone graduating Growth Track and giving $30, even in the next month, is very, very high. So I am just learning as a pastor that you're either going to pay on the front end or you're going to pay on the back end. This is just me paying on the front end. If one of the 10 people that signed up for a Growth Track this next year tithes, 1 in 10, it's actually going to pay for everyone's pizza for the entire month, because one of these people started tithing, 1 out of 10. And studies are showing it's actually higher than 1 out of 10 start tithing or giving at a percentage-based giving based on where they're at in their finances.
That's good. So we've got a couple of questions kind of coming through here. One of them I want to hit on before we keep going, and I'll be conscious of time here so we can get to everything before we have to wrap it up. But I do think one of them is just a good question right now. But how are we keeping track of people in our church to where they're still engaged? Like, what are we doing right now to make sure that they aren't falling through the cracks because we can't meet on a weekly basis? What does that look like?
It's a great question. So I think right now, until there's even physical gatherings of small groups, I really think there's three priorities. One is a Sunday morning experience that doesn't need to be polished. It just needs to be authentic. People need to see you. People go to your church because of you as the lead pastor. A big part of the brand is the leader. So the second thing is, how are you serving the needs of the city, and do you see the needs of the city, and how are you responding? And the third thing is to care for the people within your church. So to answer that third part of the equation, what we did is we took everyone who's filled out a connection card since we launched, and we created a spreadsheet, and we recruited people to make care calls and coach calls. Care calls meaning, hey, if they've lost their job, or if someone in their family got COVID, or they're sick, man, the whole focus of the call is care. If they're like, hey, we're doing good, yeah, like we're not physically working, but our company's still paying us because they got the PPP loan. Like, we're doing okay. Well, we changed the call to being like, hey, let me help you take a next step. Are you in a connect group? Have you gone through our growth track? And we're trying to point them towards taking a spiritual next step. And those care calls have been massive for us. And we have a team of, I think, 14 just volunteers who were grateful to make the call. Maybe 50% of the people actually answered it. But what we gave them was a template of, hey, if you get a voicemail, say this. And they would leave a voicemail that's about 60 seconds long and includes about a 15-second to 30-second prayer of just blessing over them. And then they would send a text message follow-up. So about 50% of those that we left a voicemail or a text message actually would respond back through a text message or a phone call. And we've gone through that list now about 2 times.
So great. There's some more questions coming in. We'll circle back towards the end of that. One of the questions is about follow-up, and we'll get to that towards the end here. I will add to, so I'm part of the team. I'm part of the Vibrant Church team. And Pastor Brandon is really good at just focusing on these things. And I think it really helps just to know, hey, there's 4 things that we need to focus on. And if we do these things right, then...
I think we lost Michael there for a second. Maybe it was just me.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it was just you. I could hear you fine, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So if we're able to focus on just these 4 things, I think people could follow us and they're able to engage. One thing that Brandon does as well is he helps us. So we record on Thursday, and then on Sunday, Brandon kind of puts all his energy into meetings on Sundays. So because the message is out of the way on Thursday, he's able to hold a team meeting and really energize the team. And he also does our growth track, which we'll talk more about on Sundays. So he's putting his energy on Sunday towards, again, things that move the needle, because he's freed himself up for the Thursday on Thursdays. So let me just kind of pivot real quick. We'll come back to some more details. One of the things about a great brand is the visuals. So making sure that you have once you get clear about who you are, you're able to provide the right experience. And that needs to be digital and also physical. So we need to make sure that we have the right logo in place. The logo is the thing that people see the most. Like, it's the thing that gets impressed on people the most. So we have to make sure we get that right. We also have to make sure that we have a website that's right. It serves as the lobby, the front door of the church where people go first, especially on their mobile device. So we have to make sure we get that right. And it can't be focused on the church and people in the church. It needs to be focused on the first-time guest who should have a very intuitive experience. And then physical signs are important too as we start to come back together. Do we have directional signs? Do we have messaging that kind of communicates that, hey, we want you here? Do we make it easy for people to see the church and the property and understand what's going on? All those things are part of our brand. It's part of the experience that we provide that's in line with the vision that God has given us. If we said, hey, we want people to come to our church, then we need to make sure that our brand is speaking that loud and clear with all the visuals. I do want to let you know about a branding workshop that I offer to help get this done for you. Typically, a website might cost you, a really good website that's done well, might cost you $5,000. A good brand package with the logo and the strategy might cost you $3,000 to $5,000 to get it right. Your signage might be another $1,000 to get it right. We're talking upwards of $10,000 to get this right. And what I want to do is offer this to as many churches as I can, where I can walk you through this process, get it done right for you, build the right experience in line with the vision that God has given you through my workshop. And I can do it at a much less price point. So if you'd love to connect with me on that, let me know in the chat, or go to the Church Brand Guide website, sign up for the application, and I'd love to connect with you later on that. So I want to provide a practical solution to maybe something you might be facing right now. So the other thing is to attract people. So Brandon, real quick, what are we doing to reach out to new people right now? What's the strategy for on social media or anything else?
That's a great question. So the big thing right now is we call them social influencers. What we want our people to do is to like, comment, and share. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are all social platforms that are built on algorithms. And the way that they know that their business grows is by what do people like. So let's just say you have 2,000 followers on Instagram. And if you put up a post, Instagram, if they don't see some early traction within that post, of the 2,000 people that want to follow you, less than 100 of them actually see that post. Now, if you get people early on to like, comment, and share, now Instagram is like, oh, wow, this is great. Let's make it so of the 2,000 people, now 1,000 people might see it, not including all the people who shared it, and you're using their digital platform to make a difference. The other piece of this is getting people to create their own posts and their own content and putting it on their page. And then what you get to do as a church is you can put it in your Instagram story, your Facebook story, or you can post them on the different platforms. And what that does is it makes it so you're using their social network in your behalf. And that's all free. So for me as a pastor, I am trying to move people forward to like, comment, and share. So we do actually a social influencer award in our Sunday morning dream team call. We give a point system for like 1 point for a like, 5 points for a comment, and 10 points for a share. Or if you create your own post or story and you tag us in it, that's also worth 10 points. And the winner gets a $25 gift card to wherever my wife decided for that week. And she's really good at picking like Target or Starbucks or something like that. And that $25, I mean, when you're talking about a week getting 200 shares, 200 comments, and 1,000 likes on all of your posts, like that's free marketing. That 20, you could pay for that kind of marketing. Like $25 is so inexpensive, but that has been a way that we've been able to motivate people, because whatever gets celebrated gets replicated. I'm gonna say it again because it's so good. I didn't make it up. I got it from someone else. I'm sure it's probably John Maxwell, but whatever gets celebrated gets replicated. So whatever you're celebrating is what your people are doing.
So let's get to this question, because Chris was asking about it and I wanted to make sure we cover it. But one of the biggest part of a brand is to get buy-in. So you can't just attract people and get them there, but how do you then convert them into basically buying into the church, whatever that means? It's the buy now button on Amazon, that when you find a product you want, like, man, you want that buy now button. If you don't have it, you're super frustrated. So in church world, that looks different for different churches, but we need to have it. Like, we need to have it and present it on a regular basis. We have to have good follow-up, great membership process. And again, membership means something different for a lot of different churches, but I do want to share some of that too. So Brandon, as part of our last topic here, what does the buy-in process look like? We call it growth track. Unpack that.
So yeah, Growth Track is really our assimilation process that we got from Church of the Highlands and the ARC. It's their model, and it's all available for free at thegrowleader.com. You can sign your church up and they just give it away. And what we do is I recorded me teaching the class, and that's about a 30-minute, one of them's like 27 minutes, one's 37 minutes, because we do a 2-week hybrid basically of the 4-week model. And so we have someone who hosts a Zoom group where they actually will play that video in the group, and the people in the group then will watch that video, and then the facilitator is there for engagement and to guide them through taking those next steps. And so step 1 is really about them leading them to taking a spiritual gifts test and a personality profile, which is kind of fun because then the next week the hook is, hey, come back next week and we're going to explain the results of your test to you. And the end of week 2 is, hey, you should join and sign up for one of our Connect group or one of our dream teams.
Gotcha. And you have been producing these videos. I'm just clicking on it now. You can probably see my screen. They're online. You went ahead and recorded them ahead of time. How is the engagement going? Tell us a little bit about how it's working.
That's great. So we've been in digital church now for, I think, right at 8 weeks. And a typical class for us, the ARC says that you need to have about 2% of your adults in your service in a Connect group. That's kind of like their metric of like, hey, you're doing pretty good. 2%. So for us, if we were to have had 100 adults outside of our dream team and kids just attending the service, we would want to have about 2 people in growth track. What we were seeing before all of this was about 4 to 6 people on average. Some weeks were a little bigger, some weeks were 4. And then COVID happened. And our first 2 weeks were great, and we had that same 4 to 6. And then we had a few weeks of nothing, which we had never experienced before. So we called an audible and said, we got to try something different. So I added growth track to being communicated from me in my message each week. And we offered a free pizza to anyone who's joined. And since we've been doing that, we've been running again that 4 to 6 person. And what's crazy to me is we actually have people now out of state who are going through our growth track process to become part of one of our digital teams. Because I think on the other side, I think digital church is here to stay. And I think even in the season of people being hesitant to come to church, they might not be hesitant to invite some friends or family to come over and watch church and then have lunch together. So we're trying to set up this idea of, hey, I think church online is here to stay. And I think rural America is looking for some great churches to be a part of. And if we can help resource them to do church at home, where they're going through growth track, they have Connect groups and they're serving their city, they're still vibrant. They just might live in another area.
Yeah, that's really good insights. If you have any questions, feel free to do that. We'll just field some questions here, but we'll start to wrap it up. The area I was showing you right here is our coaching membership area. This is where I can provide a lot of resources where you can just click on it, such as the video that Brandon talked about, and you could just go see an example of what he's doing. The actual video itself is there. He also provided the 2-week growth track that he has edited into a format that works in 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks. The Church of the Highlands growth track is in there as well, where you can get the full 4-week version of that. And also Brandon provided his keynote slide deck that he uses behind him to present that. So you can get that in there. The coaching membership is a paid membership, but it's where I can offer you stuff like this. It's almost like a curator of resources all in one place. And it goes in line with like, how do you build your brand? And I'd love for you to check out the membership. It might be a great first step for you if you're looking to really build a brand and be intentional. Again, on a marketing perspective, like how do we reach people and guide them through what our church can do for them so that we start to communicate the right messages that cuts through the noise and really meets the needs of the people that they have. So like I said, we'll wrap things up. The membership is there. All the growth track resources have just been added that Brandon sent over and talked about. So again, that's one of the biggest things in church world is how do you get people to opt in, to buy into the vision that God has given you? And there's a great process that has been working really well. The ARC network of churches kind of came up with this model, and it works amazingly well. We'd love to resource you with it and let you have that. So let's wrap it up. There's a couple questions that we'll field. If you have any more questions, feel free to type that up. If you have to leave, hey, thanks for joining us on the call today. We usually like to make it about 30 minutes, so thank you for hanging out with us. And we'll see you next time. And Brandon, if you can hang out just for another 5 minutes or so, we can maybe take a couple questions. Does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there's one question up here that said, your online offerings, have they been enough to engage with your church, to allow you to just keep on engaging in your church? Now, you kind of talked about that a little bit, but why don't you circle back?
Yeah, so our giving, since again, I have 2 months worth of like metrics, which is never enough to like communicate, here's where things are at. I can just communicate how things have been trending. March was our biggest giving month of the year and the second biggest giving month since we launched our church. April, I think I'm right in this. I think April was very, a little bit above average. So I think our giving has actually gone up through the season. Not a ton, but like I'm talking like 5 to 10%. It's certainly up from where it was in January and February by 20% plus. But January and February, as all of you know, is a little bit lighter. But I think a big reason is we've been very intentional about finding ways for our church size to make a difference in our city, and then letting our givers know where their money's going. Hey, we're providing Financial Peace University at 70% off because of your generosity. And we fed 2,000 kids this month because of your generosity. We sent dozens of people to go serve, and they filled about 50,000 meals for families because of your generosity. Our digital church experience is available and reaching people because of your generosity. So I'm connecting what we're doing to the fact that connecting people's giving. And I think people, that's what they give to. They give to vision. And when you talk about, hey, we're making a difference in our city and your money matters and it's making an eternal difference, I think that's what people give to.
Amazing. So the Brandon put his information in the chat. If you wanted to engage with Brandon further, he has an email address there, even a phone number. So feel free to do that. One thing I wanted to mention too is that Coastal Community Church is a church that's just north of us. They're part of our network of churches, and man, they have been so amazing. They basically allow us to use their building. Right when COVID happened, we lost our facility. We were in a school and we lost all of it. So we had to figure out a way to do church. You know, everybody did, but Coastal opened up their doors. Brandon, why don't you talk about Coastal real quick and what they've done for us?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things in this whole season has been the way the Capital C Church has been responding. I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, as a church, if you had a great idea or something great, you kept it to yourself and you kind of kept it a secret, or you tried to sell the idea. And what I think has been awesome is the number of churches who have been doing things at high levels that just say, here you go, you can have it, it's free. So I think those churches are seeing unprecedented blessing of God. And I think Coastal is one of those churches that just said, hey, I want to be a good steward of what God has given us. And he gave it to the Capital C Church, not just my small church. And I think that there's a blessing that comes alongside of that. And he would tell you from a financial side of it, his church's giving has gone up significantly.
So good. So good. Well, let's wrap it up. There's one more question here that I think is a good one. And Christopher asks, are you serving in the digital realm to survive or to grow? Brandon, what's your mindset?
In the beginning, it was survive. Like my first 2 weeks were like, oh my God, you need to help us. You need to give us direction because I have no idea what to do. And as I looked to all the people I'd always looked to, like, we don't know what we're doing either. There's no playbook for this. This has never happened before. And after about 2 weeks, really Easter for me, I think we've really turned the corner to, hey, we're not trying to survive anymore. Now we're trying to grow and think differently about church, which I think differently about church is that church online is here to stay. Digital small groups, they're here to stay. The idea of preaching as a pastor to just the people in the room, I think that's the part that's over. And I think the churches that think hey, we're going to go back to just the way we were, are the churches that are going to struggle on the backside of this. And I think then the question is, well, why won't everyone just go to Elevation Church? Or why won't everyone just go to Transformation Church? And I think the answer is because you can do what they can't do, which is care for them. Elevation Church isn't making phone calls to your people. You can, though, and the people on your team can. I think it's how we care for those people and engage those people are going to be the difference makers.
So good. Hey, Brandon, I guess we'll close it down. I just want to mention thanks to everyone for your encouragement. I love that you have commented about how helpful this has been. So Brandon, several comments about how incredibly helpful this has been. So thank you for sharing with us and all that. So if you guys are interested in more and drilling deeper, I'd love for you to check out the membership. Actually, it's a very low cost. If you need to jump in and jump out, like that's great. Just grab what you need from in there. Help yourself out. And then, if that's something that you want to jump out of, that's great. It's just an open door type of a thing, but check that resource out. It's designed to really help you go further, faster with, building your church brand and your community. So I'll close things out. And Brandon, thanks again for joining us. And thanks everyone for jumping on the call. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. You get those emails, so hit a reply on those emails, and I'd love to jump on and get back with you. Any final thoughts, Brandon?
Yeah, two things. First off, Pastor Chris Georges, Pastor Stanley, love you guys. You guys are doing a great job. It's great to see you. And I think marketing, I think entrepreneurial, but one of the best decisions I did was ask Michael to create my brand and not try to be an expert. And I can just tell you, 80% of our first-time guests that have come since we launched found us online, went to our website, and they said, hey, we just felt the good vibes that were coming from you, so we decided to come check you out. So I just encourage you, jump in his membership, take the course, and let him do your branding. It'll more than pay for itself. It already has paid for itself for us.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks. Hey, thanks everyone for jumping on the call, and we'll see you on the next one. So stay safe and grow that church. Let's do something amazing. Take care.